So hopefully you had a good time with the compound components. We've got a pretty simple toggle component here, and technically it's working just fine. We have our switch component that is just an implementation detail for making this thing look and behave in the way that you'd expect a switch to behave. And we're just rendering that switch with our toggle here. But what we want to do is we want to allow users to render something when the toggle button is on and to render something else when that toggle button is off. And then we can use that toggle button anywhere in this layout to position that wherever we want. So how do we take the state values that the toggle is managing and share it implicitly to the toggle on and toggle off and toggle button components? I say implicitly because as the user of these compound components, I don't have any way to know whether the toggle is on or off. So I can't say, okay, toggle on, this will be, I don't know, we'll render this when on is true. There's no way for me to pass any props to this thing other than the children prop, which I'm passing right now. So we'll go ahead and flesh these out a little bit, and then we can work on figuring out how to get the toggle to pass props to these things that they need. So for our toggle on component, we're going to accept two props, an on and children. And then if on is true, then we'll return the children. Otherwise, we'll return null. And then our toggle off will be very similar. We'll have on and children. And if on is true, then we'll return null. Otherwise, we'll return children. And we got to spell it correctly, otherwise it doesn't work. And then for our toggle button, we're going to accept on as our state and toggle as the function that we use to change our state. And then I'm just going to grab this switch code right here and paste it right here. So we're going to say on, forward that on to the on prop here, and then toggle will be forwarded on to the on click. Okay, cool. So now we have these components ready to go, but we don't have any way to pass the on or toggle props to these because we don't have access to those. Those are managed within the toggle component itself. And so that's where we get a little fancy with our toggle function. So one of the props that our toggle function is receiving is children. So we're going to take that children prop, and then I'm going to use the react.children, and this has a map function on it, which I can pass children to, and then a function, which will get called with every child, and then that's going to return to me whatever I map these children to. So I'm going to return that. You can think of react.children.map as basically an array.map, except it works especially for React children because the children prop can be a single element or it can be an array of elements. And I tried looking into the code base once for React children because I just thought it'd be really simple. Like if it's an array, then map. Otherwise, we'll just call the function with this one child. But it was more than that, and I'm not sure what it was. Some of the React code is pretty wild. So I just go ahead and use this map function to take all of the children and map them into new children. So what we need to do here is I need to return a new child because that's what is going to be returned from this toggle component. So I'm going to go ahead and let's make sure this is totally clear. I'm going to console log the child, and here I'll just return null for each one of these. So we'll get nothing rendered right there. And I'll pull up the DevTools here, and here we have three objects. The first object is this button is on. The type is that toggle function. And we've got another one, the button is off. This is the toggle off function, and this is the switch function. Okay, very good. So what we need to do is you'll notice that each one of these has props for children, but they also need to have props for on. And for this one, it needs props for on and toggle, but we're not passing it any props. So how do we give it the props that it needs? Well, we could say child.props.on equals on, and child.props.toggle equals toggle, and then we can return the child, right? That's what we'd want to do, but we're going to get an error saying, hey, can't add a property on, object is not extensible. So React actually makes it so that you cannot modify the props directly, and instead they want you to say React clone element. So we're going to make a brand new copy of this child element, and here are the props that I want applied. We want on and toggle. And with those, we now get a new child from React clone element, and these two children are different. So we have one child that's the original one that was created by the app component when they called into rendering the toggle, and now we have a new child that we just cloned from that original child. So we're going to return that new child, and you'll notice that the new child has the props that we want. So we go props. Now this has the right children, and it has the on, and it has the toggle. Sweet. So now I can go back and forth, and I'm getting the UI that I want. All right. So in review, what we did here was we just trusted in faith that we would get the props that we needed for each one of these components. And some of those props are provided to us by the user of our component. Others of these props are provided implicitly thanks to the toggle component that we're going to be rendered inside of. And this toggle component hands those props to us by taking all of its children and mapping those to new children, which are cloned copies of that original child with these additional props passed implicitly. At least it's implicit from the perspective of the users, and it's explicit from the perspective of this toggle component. And that's how you share implicit state for compound components.